Well, I think it's quite, in terms of decay and dread and systems versus maybe nature or nature versus culture in a way is the question, I think. Um, I have been extremely fortunate slash unfortunate to before I became a full time writer, being a technical editor, technical writer, and business process analyst for various companies. And for some reason, I was always with the companies that you would call Lord of the Flies with middle management or something. That's how I would describe them, where all kinds of grotesqueries of management analysis and whatnot were ongoing, very dysfunctional companies, which was very eye opening. And many of them were dealing with government agencies that often seemed also dysfunctional. So I got to see the systems. I got to see what the ideal systems approach should be to certain problems, which is actually useful with regard to climate crisis. And I got to see the dysfunctional aspect of that as well, and how human intent and even whether someone had gotten their coffee in the morning or not was going to affect like a multi-million dollar project. And a lot of that went into a book like Authority, which is basically about bureaucracy and how you can do pure science, you can be a pure biologist, but you're still ruled by the systems you have to interact with to do your scientific inquiry. And I find that there's a tension there that's very useful for fiction. And in fact, one of the my proudest and yet most horrifying moments is when someone who was high up in the national EPA came up to me after reading and said, "Jeff, Authority was one of the most darkly funny books I've ever read." And it was very much like what I experienced in the EPA. Um, so I began to explore that with Authority, and I've not stopped exploring that. And I think it's a good juxtaposition with the nature and the wildlife, because there is this kind of interaction between the two, and you often see all kinds of bad decisions about climate crisis and the environment occurring because of bad systems in place, or systems that in some way were meant to solve some other problem but are being applied to areas where they shouldn't be. And so you definitely see kind of doom and decay in that. There's also a lot of humor in that, maybe dark humor, but because there's a lot of absurdity in that particular space.